In this video, I will use the Flapdragon from Dragon Quest Monsters as a Pokémon in Fire Red. The Flapdragon, or Coatl in Japanese, is Mirai's ace monster in the original Terry's Wonderland and its 3DS remake. He's based on a winged serpent in Aztec legend known as Quetzalcoatl, which is what Rayquaza is also based on. However, as somewhat of a final boss, his stats are quite a letdown. For his stats as a Pokémon, I used an average of his original stats and 3DS stats. So, he will have 105 base HP, 90 attack, 82 defense, 54 special attack, 64 special defense, and 118 speed, for a total of 513. The total number is kind of deceptive, as his two highest stats, HP and speed, are the least relevant in a solo run. Since the DQM games use lookup tables instead of a formula to calculate stat growth, the rate of which can vary greatly at different levels, the conversion won't be exactly faithful. Also, bigger index numbers don't always mean higher stats, and in this case, 18 is better than both 20 and 22. Table 25 isn't as good as it looks, since it's a super late bloomer whose growth spurt only starts at level 42, and you can easily beat the game in the 30s, so I've nerfed his base HP. His level up moves are based on his default Bang and Zap skill set in the 3DS remake, plus a few other moves for flavor and coverage. Dragon Rush because his normal attack becomes Hatchet Man when bred in TW3D, which trades accuracy for critical rate, but there are no such moves in Pokémon. The basic Bang and Zap set only gets Tier 2 spells and Tier 1 slashes, but seeing as no monster naturally starts with an upgraded set in the 3DS games, I gave him the Tier 2 slashes and kaboom. No Kazap because I made the Thunderbolt and Thunder TMs compatible, and so it'd be redundant. I will set up a Flapdragon with perfect IVs and pre-applied EVs. He will have a neutral nature, because I can edit the base stats directly to make adjustments if necessary. He's a serpent in the dragon family, so the dragon and poison typing seems fitting. He has the Bangmeister trait, which boosts the damage of all Bang-based skills by 15% and halves their MP consumption. There's no MP in Pokémon, so I just made the boost slightly stronger at 20%, same as abilities like Reckless and Iron Fist, but still much weaker than Stab and things like Sharpness and Steelworker. Boosted moves are in caps. The only sensible EV spread is 252 in both attacks, since he doesn't need any extra speed, and his base HP is high enough to make up for his mediocre defenses. Like most dragons, he levels up slowly in the DQM games, so I put him in the 1.25 million experience group. This group requires 25% more EXP than the standard 1 million group at all levels, but it's not as slow as the 1.64 million group in the late game. The bugs in Viridian Forest give abysmal experience, and I was only level 12 after fighting all available trainers up to Brock. However, I have similar base stats to a fully evolved starter, so that didn't turn out to be a problem, especially since I had Stab Bang to hit the much lower special defense of his Pokémon. Another thing worth noting is that Brock no longer has full heals in the remakes, and I don't think he even has potions. Hallowed Slash does Bang and Zap damage, and Bomb Slash does Bang and Donk damage, so both of them are boosted by Bangmeister. I made the former electric type with a chance to confuse, and the latter rock type with a chance to stun. These along with poison should give me some decent coverage. The second rival battle could be annoying if you can't one-shot his Pidgeotto, because it has Sand Attack to lower your accuracy, but both of my slashes are super effective against it. By the way, I gave the rival Charmander, but it doesn't really matter since he always ends up with a team containing the same types. Although he gets 2 Intimidators with Bulbasaur, his Venusaur in the final battle has Solar Beam as its only damaging move, which I doubly resist. Misty Starmie is quite overpowered for this stage of the game, with 115 speed and 100 special attack, but I'm faster, and I had plenty of trainers in the north part of the city to level up on. The game gives you a Persim Berry in an alcove before Mount Moon, which I equipped just in case I get confused by its Water Pulse. I don't know what other moves it has, but I'm certain it wouldn't have Psychic or Ice Beam so early. I don't get Stab on Hallowed Slash, but it turned out to be a one-shot anyway, so it obviously doesn't have HP or defense EVs. In fact, I don't think gym leaders have EVs at all in these games. Boom is the Tier 2 version of Bang, and I gave it 55 base power because all AoE spells are weaker than single-target ones. I also replaced Hallowed Slash with Zapple because I wanted a contactless move that can hit weaknesses, and it has perfect accuracy as well for better quality of life. The rival battle on the ship is a joke, since his team is hardly any stronger than the last time, even though he has evolved all of his Pokémon once. It's just the problem with most middle-stage Pokémon until this day, as their stats are much closer to their basic form than their final form. In the case of Raticate, it's just an awful early route Pokémon, despite being fully evolved. Surge got a huge nerf in the remake. His Raichu had Thunderbolt in the original games, and it was level 28 in the yellow version, but here it's only level 24 with the 60 power Shockwave. He's basically a free win in all of these versions anyway, considering you can catch a level 29 or 31 Dugtrio with Dig in the cave, and they're not even rare. I just equipped a Cherry Berry for the potential paralysis, although Bomb Slash or Poison Fangs should easily one-shot the Raichu. I did land a critical hit, but I really don't think it mattered. You'll naturally be overleveled for the tower rival fight in a solo run, due to the number of unskippable trainers along the way. He replaced the awful Raticate with the 2 starter types he didn't pick, and interestingly, his Gyarados had Dragon Rage and Hydro Pump here in the original versions. Apparently, those were the moves it started with, since it wasn't available in the wild, and there was no move reminder. They fixed its moveset in the remakes, so the most threatening thing about it is just Intimidate. Cross Poison has high critical rate and a chance to poison. This compound effect is already in the game, as it's also used by Poison Tail. I doubly resist grass and can't be poisoned, so Erika's gym was a breeze. The Cherry Berry was unnecessary as everything on her team was a one-shot by Cross Poison. I'm quite certain that gym leaders don't have EVs in these games, or if they do, they might not have perfect IVs or sensible spreads. The basic Bang and Zap skill set doesn't get tier 3 spells, but since the Flapdragon special attack is well below average, I gave him Kaboom anyway. It's just a clone of Dazzling Gleam, with 80 base power and no added effects, which is to say it's pretty bad like all spells before tier 4, and the AoE isn't relevant in these games. It still hits hard with both Stab and the Bangmeister boost though. Koga's gym presents a huge level spike, but the bikers on the cycling road have a lot of evolved Pokémon which give a lot of experience. Still, I didn't have much of a level advantage anymore due to my slow EXP group, and Kaboom couldn't one-shot either his Muck or Weezing even with the trait boost. Luckily, I'm immune to Toxic, and his Weezing doesn't have Explosion anymore in the remakes. Explosion has 500 effective power in Gen 3 because it halves the target's defense, but I should still survive one on full HP, unless it has maxed attack. Sacred Slash is the tier 2 version of Hallowed Slash, and I gave it 70 base power as it's only slightly stronger. These slashes do normal attack damage plus 10 and 20% respectively, and some elements have AoE versions like Sea Splitter and Earth Splitter. The rivals team at Sylph Company is at lower levels than Koga's, because you can do the Rocket Quest before the gym. Like always, the biggest threat on his team is Sand Attack from the Pidgeot, but fortunately this time, I can easily one-shot it with Sacred Slash. Everything else on his team was also a one-shot, despite Intimidate from the Gyarados. His Charizard has a double weakness to Rock, so I probably should have given him Blastoise instead, but it would only have Water Gun until the final battle due to its terrible learn set in this gen. The following Giovanni battle was easy as well, although his Kangaskhan and Nidoqueen had enough bulk to survive a hit. They don't have Outrage or Earthquake in this battle, so there wasn't a lot they could do, except try to paralyze me with Body Slam. Besides, Outrage is only 90 power in this gen, not 120, and Kangaskhan doesn't have a good attack stat. It was even special without the ROM patch, and just like Dragon Claw, it made absolutely no sense. I was getting quite overleveled again at this point, so Sabrina's Psychic Gym was just a clean sweep with Cross Poison and Bomb Slash. I don't understand why the Venomoth is on her team, instead of Koga's like in the anime and yellow version, but it does learn all the Psychic type attacks in Gen 1, which I also don't understand why. I guess they originally intended for it to be a Bug and Psychic type, hence its color scheme, but they changed it in the last minute. I don't know, a lot of things in Pokemon don't make sense anyway. Blast Slash is the tier 2 Bomb Slash, and I also gave it 70 base power to match most other slashes in Pokemon, except Cross Scissor which is 80. Stun plus high critical rate actually is an existing effect in Gen 3, but it's only used by Sky Attack, and so it has the 2-turn effect built in, and this meant I had to forego the crit rate. Blaine was another easy fight, even though he had 2 Intimidators to cut my already mediocre attack. I had a good level advantage and resistance to fire, plus a Rost Berry to heal the occasional burn. His Arcanine missed its Fire Blast as well, but it wouldn't have mattered either way, since it couldn't do a lot even if it landed. I made the Fire Blast TM compatible, but I don't think I'd need it for anything, because most of Lorelei's ice types are also part water, for which I already have Sacred Slash, and I have Cross Poison for the rival's Executor. Giovanni's Ground Gym could be a problem due to my poison typing and lack of super effective moves, but his team got a weird nerf in the remake, which ended up helping me out this time. Rhyhorn has no special defense, and Dugtrio has no HP, so they were easy one-shots by Kaboom, but both Nidoqueen and Nidoking have much higher stats, meaning I had to take an Earthquake from each of them. Fortunately, I had enough HP and defense to survive the hits, but if he had a Rhydon like in the original games, I'm sure I'd have lost here since it has 130 base attack. I don't know why they took away his Rhydon, probably because the rival also gets it, but they should have given him a Golem instead, which you never see in a normal playthrough. Speaking of the rival, the battle against him before the league was trivial. The only real threat was the Pidgeot Sand attack, but I could easily one-shot it. His Alakazam survived a cross poison after Intimidate, but it didn't even attack. I gave the Flapdragon Dragon Dance at level 62, otherwise he'd have no chance at beating the league until at least level 80. I thought I still needed Sacred Slash for Lorelei and Lance, so I chose to replace Blast Slash, which might have been a mistake. Here are my stats and moves going into the Pokémon League. My HP is great, but my attack stats are only mediocre even with all my EVs in them, and my special defense is horrible. I don't need that much speed, so I'd love to move some of it into attack or special defense if I could. I might have a colorful move set, but Dragon, Electric, and Poison are the types with literally the worst coverage in this generation. I should have kept Blast Slash instead, since 4 of Lorelei's Pokémon are weak to rock, and Lance's Gyarados has terrible moves. Anyway, I equipped an Aspear Berry for Lorelei just in case of a freeze. Her leading Dugong almost always opens with Hail, and its special attack is quite bad, so I can safely set up Dragon Dance. Hail is just a waste of a turn, because contrary to popular belief, it does not boost the physical defense of ice types, and the Dugong doesn't even have Blizzard to take advantage of it. She sent out the Slowbro next, so keeping Sacred Slash was probably the correct decision after all. I don't think my awful special defense could survive another Ice Beam after the chip damage from Hail, and I don't know if her Cloyster or Lapras has Ice Shard. Wait, what am I talking about? Ice Shard is a Gen 4 move. Gen 3 has Icicle Spear, which is a multi-hit move without priority. I keep confusing the two moves, especially since they are both physical and have the same amount of PP. It should be Icicle Spears, but there wasn't enough character space for the S. Bruno exists, and his team is horrendous, what else can I say? They seem to have forgotten that Primeape and Poliwrath are also fighting types, and they can actually learn some coverage moves like Thunderbolt, Overheat, Ice Beam, and Psychic. Some of his Pokémon no counter, but it can be easily played around since the Focus Sash doesn't exist in this gen. Alum Berry is pretty much forced for Agatha, as her leading Gengar has Confuse Ray and Toxic. I'm immune to the latter, but I can still be confused. I had no physical stab moves except the doubly resisted Cross Poison, and her Arbok has Intimidate, so I chose to set up Dragon Dance. It opened with Double Team, but luckily, I didn't miss. Her second Gengar probably has EVs in HP or defense, as Sacred Slash wasn't a one-shot at +1 attack. Shadow Ball is now special like it should be, and it hit me for almost half thanks to my low special defense. This battle could have been tough if she juggled the Arbok to lower my attack, but the AI in this gen isn't sophisticated enough to abuse Pokémon abilities. It is aware of them though, and it knows exactly which ability you have. Here I used a couple of rare candies to reach level 69 and learn Dragon Rush. While Kaboom has similar power and perfect accuracy, it uses my much lower special attack and doesn't benefit from Dragon Dance. Dragon Rush only has 75% accuracy, so I need to get lucky and not miss at critical moments. Lance's Gyarados has such an atrocious moveset that it's just a setup fodder. They should at least give it Thunder Wave or something to deter setups. There is a second round to the league in these remakes, but it requires you to complete all the post-game quests on those little islands, and it's just not worth the time and effort. I used Cross Poison for the 2 Dragonair as I didn't want to risk missing and getting paralyzed. The Dragonite could probably take me out from 174 HP with an Outrage, so Dragon Rush was forced. Green's Pidgeot has no EVs in special defense, so it wouldn't be surprising that they were in physical. Sacred Slash wasn't a one-shot despite me being 10 levels higher with maxed attack, but it did confuse and made it KO itself. Here I blundered and picked Dragon Dance against his Alakazam, and it did over 2/3 to me with Psychic. There was no way I could one-shot his Rhydon after Intimidate, so that was a loss. I didn't want to grind or use more rare candies, so I re-entered the league, keeping my level. The first 4 fights were easy, and for Green, I just had to get lucky on the first turn and avoid a Sand Attack or Feather Dance, which was a 50-50 shot. The Alakazam was obviously a one-shot at +1, and since the Gyarados doesn't have Earthquake, it was safe to set up another Dragon Dance on, to offset its Intimidate. Dragon Rush couldn't one-shot the Rhydon even at +1, but I was out of the KO range of its Earthquake, so it picked Rock Tomb instead as a speed debuff. It did nothing to help him since my speed was at +2. I knew he'd heal, and I used another Dragon Dance just so I didn't have to roll for Dragon Rush more times than necessary. He has multiple full restores after all. The rest of his team was no threat. In conclusion, the Flapdragon was quite underwhelming as a Pokémon, mainly because a lot of his stats are in the wrong places, and he only has a generic elemental skill set. His 3DS stats actually helped him during the conversion, or he'd only have about 70 attack, although most of his other stats would be higher. Thanks for watching.